Hi and welcome. You're listening to Sustainable Photography. This is episode 165 and my name is Ingvild Kolnes. Today I had Kelsey of Honeybee Weddings with me, and you might have heard her here before on the podcast, but today we are talking about location scouting, which is so much fun, and you can hear all of Kelsey's secrets. And especially if you're an elopement photographer, this is an episode you do not want to miss. You're listening to Sustainable Photography, a podcast all about business tips, inspiration, and confidence building. I'm Ingvild Kolnes, the host of this podcast, and after over a decade as a photographer, I now help talented photographers run sustainable businesses. And for full transparency, you should know that I'm a mentor with paid offers, and I will probably mention some of those in this episode. Hi, Kelsey. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, girl. Hey, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we just had a talk the other day when I was doing an interview with you for your podcast. Can we start there? Just tell us about your podcast and remind us again who you are and about your photography.
Yes. So I'm Kelsey with Honeybee Weddings. I photograph worldwide elopements all over the world. So we do photo, video, and I do have a team of photographers in Montana as well. As far as the podcast goes, that is like my newest obsession / scary new thing that I'm trying in my business. It is called The Climb with Kelsey. It is on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So tune in. Baby's first episode. So we are recording this mid-January. It came out literally yesterday.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's new, it's fun, it's exciting. We were talking about carving your niche, which I think is really important and fun. So that's the podcast.
That is important. And it's also fun. And we both we actually share the same photography niche, both doing elopements. And I thought that could be such a fun conversation to talk a little bit more about location scouting and why that is so important. Do you want to share some thoughts around that?
I mean, agreed 100%. I have such a strong emotional, physical tie to nature and to location specifically. And so it's always been so fun to incorporate and to dream up and just really plan out like where these people's beautiful wedding days are going to happen, because they're one of the most popular reasons why people choose to elope is because they're like, I don't want this ballroom stuff. Like, I don't want this air quote traditional wedding. I want to go somewhere that's meaningful for me. I want to travel the world. I want to have an epic honeymoon. Oh, and by the way, we're getting married. Like, so much of those decisions are focused around location that's the most exciting part. Yeah, how about you? Like, did you get excited about locations, or is that just like a nerd alert thing?
No, definitely. And I also think it's important in traditional wedding photography, which is where I started, but not in the same way for traditional weddings. It was like, this is the venue. Where can I find that is local to this place? So we only have to walk for like a couple of minutes or stop between the ceremony and the reception.
Or you're like, at least for me, like, or you're not photographing the groomsmen in a shed getting ready. I mean, like, because again, like, you and me are very similar. I started with weddings as well. That has literally happened at a venue. It feels so constraining. It's like, how can I photograph around this instead of like, where's this cool spot that I could go anywhere in the world?
Yeah, because I feel like that's something that I've felt several times where the wedding is almost close to somewhere cool, and it's like it takes too long. We can't do that. We can't go there. And that is very different when you're doing elopements, because you can find the coolest places and then plan everything else around that.
Exactly. I mean, I think the coolest thing that it was kind of the aha moment of like, I want to go to these cool places. Like, how can I book elopements in these cool places? Oh, aha, you tell them where they're going to go. Like, it's brilliant because it's like a win-win. You get to go to the cool places and you know it's going to photograph really well and you're very inspired by it. A. B, the couple doesn't have to work for it and they get these awesome places. Like, I when I first started offering location matchmaking as part of my process. Before I did that, it was kind of a crapshoot of like, am I going to go somewhere cool, or is it going to be like, oh, some random field somewhere, and I'm just going to like, meh, like we can do better.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think I did a couple like, meh, we can do better, until I was like, oh girl, I need to be telling you guys like the best places. And it seemed to work out really well. The couples love it. And then you get some really cool places.
Yeah, I think that makes all the difference. I don't know about you and your couples, but for me, they all come from a different country. Like they're not familiar here at all. So I feel like it's my job, both because I think that's going to give them the best result, and also because it's part of the service. It's like part of the deal. And very often when a couple tell me like, oh, we have this really cool location, it's like, no, you don't.
Do you though? Do you?
You just think you do, and you don't know what you're looking for.
Well, because it's not their job. It's our job, right? Like location scouting is everything. And at least for me, it's not just about finding the pretty backdrop to just like walk up, you click the pic and we're done. Like it's about creating the experience that feels aligned to these sweet couples and like to what they're looking for. The right location can elevate that story, like that wedding story, whether it's this like super quiet forest and they just want some like birds chirping, or if it's this like epic cliffside and they just want to hear the waves crashing around them. Like that is everything. And it's not just the aesthetic, but also the culture of that place. Like I really want to craft the experience of them being able to like sit in this physical beauty place and in the culture of a place. Most of my couples, like you say, like they want to go somewhere they've never been and cross that epic vacation off their list.
Yeah.
And so it's my job to ensure that the spot ticks all those boxes, like that they can get there, that it's safe. Because the number one rule, like don't get dead. We can do a lot of cool shit, but like don't get dead. That's rule number one. It has the wow factor that they're dreaming of, and like they can experience that place as like newly married humans, like this big milestone, and they can experience this awesome place together. So fun.
Yeah. And I think just that whole logistical side of it, like, can you get there? Do you want to walk for 8 hours to get there? Or do you want to drive somewhere? Like just checking that before you get too excited, I think is pretty important.
Oh, totally. I mean, I specialize in hiking elopements. So the distance, the elevation gain, the like trail conditions. I mean, it's all very important that you have a big grasp of what that is and you're able to communicate that to couples. Like I don't sugarcoat any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Cause like, I don't want them to get there and think that it'll be like a short little walkie with no sweat. And then 5 miles later, they're finally getting to it.
Yeah. They have to enjoy their day. Like it should be what they are dreaming of. So I think that's pretty important.
Yeah.
But I guess the big question is, how do you do it? How do you find that right location?
Yeah, I mean, at least for me. So the process for finding that perfect spot for my sweet people, it all starts with getting to know them during our inquiry call. So before they've even booked with me, I dive into their love story, and I'm taking copious notes, right? I dive into their love story, their favorite places, and just like the kind of vibe that they want for their day. Like if they've always dreamt of that cozy forest, or the cliffside, or finding a hidden waterfall, like chasing waterfalls, I'm taking notes on that. And then I even start tossing out location ideas right then and there on the call to get their inspiration flowing. And then I think it also kind of establishes me as like, I'm the expert. I will show you the way, like come to the dark side, but like, I will figure this out for you, which I really think instills confidence right off the bat. Like, again, this is before they've even booked.
Mm-hmm.
This is just like standard issue. After they book, I send over a pretty detailed questionnaire that's asking them all about their vision for their day. So I ask things like, what kind of scenery speaks to you? Like, what sets your soul on fire in nature? Like, what is it? Are you cool with heights? Because, again, I want to know, like, if you're against heights, then like we're not doing that cliffside thing we talked about, what is your like longest that you will walk on wedding day? So that's getting back to your thing of like, are we hiking? Are we driving? What's your dream vibe? and even like, what made you choose this area to elope? So I'm getting kind of physical answers of like what they're looking for, but also like, I want to make sure that the place I pick hits the feels in just the right spot. And I want to know what those feels are. So those answers give me all the clues. I need to start my search.
Yeah.
So then I go into planning beast mode. If it's a new area that I've never been, first I hop on Google Maps and switch to satellite view so I can check out the terrain and scope out some like potential landmarks. So if they're like, hey, I really want waterfalls or I really want alpine lakes. So that's me kind of like, bird's eye view of where things are. And I start, looking into that. From there, I go to Google Earth. Me and Google Earth are like this. We are tight. We are sisters. I spend a lot of time on Google Earth, probably like an embarrassingly long time, honestly. It's so fun and I get like so excited about it. But I go to Google Earth and I use their camera mode to get a feel of the spots that match my couple's vision. So I kind of know the layout of the land. Thank you, Google Maps. So then I can kind of dive in, and using that photo tool, I can click on previous pictures that other people have posted of the actual place. And that I think is so helpful because Google Maps doesn't always do that, right? It's like people can select what place to post. It's not based on your longitude, latitude, the actual place, versus Google Earth, where, you click the place, that's where it's coming from, which is super helpful.
Yeah.
I'll also turn on the sun setting feature. Do you use that? I think that is super fun.
Yes, that makes such a big difference, especially when you're in an area with a lot of mountains and it's like, oh, this place is perfect. Because just getting the location, that's one part of it, but you want to make sure that it fits the timeline as well, like when you should be there. And that is when that function is perfect.
Totally. And I do work a lot in the mountains. So like just like a standard practice, but again, this is not always accurate. You want to photograph about an hour before internet time says it's sunset time, which, can kind of be a hit or miss. And you want to make sure that the places you get look good for the time of day you're looking for. So it's like super accurate. I also do it for star photos. So I can see, like when it's alpenglow, then I can see like, how long, again, it's like, hour and a half, when those stars are going to be popping. And that's super helpful. Because again, like, I don't want to be like, hey guys, we can end at say 10 p.m. when I actually need it solid dark, closer to 11 for my star photos. So I think that's super important. So if they're my hiking lovelies, I'll cruise sites like All Trails to get the details on, kind of like what I said, the mileage, how tough it is, elevation gain, and conditions. Once I've got a short list, I'll dive into research on those places. So I always avoid searching like best elopement spots in insert area in Google, because those spots tend to be super overrun. Instead, I'll look for local insights. So I'll look for Instagram tags or Facebook groups, or I'll even hit up Reddit and just like, tell me the best places to go. Closer to the big day, I get there a day or two early and I do a full in-person scout. I'm like boots on the ground, driving the roads, making sure the spots are accessible, they're beautiful, and everything the couple told me that they were looking for. And then I check for anything unexpected. So closed trails, any new viewpoints, a little extra surprises my couples might love. Also, I always check for good places to eat. That's something I do in advance, but definitely on the day of too, because like hanger, it's real, especially for me. So I want to make sure that everybody's like taken care of. Yeah, and I'm just thinking through logistics, like lighting, weather, accessibility, all that jazz. So it's a pretty like long process. Like it usually takes me about 3 weeks to turn around a location scout.
So what do you do if it's not what you thought? What if you get there and it doesn't look like you thought? What if the weather is just awful? Do you have a backup plan?
Always the backup plans. Yes. So when I create, I don't know about you, but when I create the like location matchmaking sheet, it's probably close to like 80 pages with pictures. So, it has a lot of details. It's not as scary as it sounds. 80 pages sounds scary. It's not scary, I promise.
It sounds massive, yeah.
But like there are a lot of options. So, they have already told me which ones are their favorites, and that's what I put into the timeline. But yeah, I will 100% put all of my backup ideas, and then I'll pin all of them into Google Maps So when I'm there on wedding day and it's like, your trail closed because of bear activity, I've actually had that happen in Glacier National Park. So you're just like, quick pivot over here. And I know where exactly it is on the map because I can click it, I can do it. I've researched it. Yeah, so a lot of plan Bs.
And it's such a good idea to just pin it right into your map as well so that you can easily just get around and know where you're going when you're already there. Because that is, I mean, if you have a lot of options, it can get a bit confusing and where did we want to go? What am I going to do? So yeah, using your tools like that, that's a good idea.
Yeah, totally. I mean, well, and I have had a couple go full on rogue on wedding day. And it was, I mean, it was great, but like, let me just like tell you the story because I think it was actually really beautiful, like how it turned out. So sometimes like the couple sees a place they want to go and they're like, this. And then all of those plans change. All of the countless hours that I put in, all the like scouting, all the driving, all the maps, like completely out the window. So I had this couple elope to the Faroe Islands. And of course, I had all the locations planned out months in advance. On the car ride to the hike, they asked me about the legend of the Sea Woman. So we were on the island of Kelsey, which is where she is. And I told them that actually, like, hey, Sea Woman is actually right down there. And we could go there and see her if you want to. And, you know, I do a lot of research on these places leading up to it. So, of course, I had come across this information. And this place was not on the list at all. Like, wasn't on the list, but they said they wanted to see her. So we did. And they ended up scratching the original idea and said their vows to each other under a little, like, cave overhang while the rain was coming down. It was magical. And it was one of their favorite parts of the elopement day of just like, yep, this is it. And that's what they decided. It was so cool. But yeah, completely unplanned.
But what if that happens and it's like, oh, yeah, they want to go somewhere, but that is not very photogenic. What do you do then?
Yeah, I mean, knock on wood, I've never had that happen. Like, I've never been like, this is the like worst case. I think at some point you gotta put your stuff aside. Like, they're not paying me to get cool photos of the place that I want, right? They're paying me to have the experience that they want. So, like, you know, again, this is the first time that's ever happened of people like really deviating from the plan. And it was beautiful. It's the Faroe Islands. Like, every place is beautiful in the Faroes. Like, you know, I wasn't mad at it. But yeah, we were supposed to go to this really cool place with like the lighthouse. It was a Kelsey lighthouse.
Yeah, that looks beautiful.
You know, oh, it's like so iconic. It's beautiful. So yeah, like, did my heart break a smidge? Like, yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you, girl. Like, it did a little bit, but it's not my job.
Yeah.
My job is to get them the experience they want. And it really turned out so beautifully for them. That's what I care about.
Yeah. So you're putting the experience over the photos in a way.
Yes. Well, because again, it's not an all-day photo shoot. That's not what this is. Will we get beautiful photos? Obviously. But it's more about the experiences along the way that I care more about.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I know that you care about and that I care about is kind of like the ethics of it, to making sure that we don't contribute to a place being overrun or going places where you're not really supposed to go. How do you handle that versus like what a client wants and stuff to make sure that we are taking care of the nature around?
Yeah. I mean, leave no trace. Principles are so important. And it really does lead to not only a sustainable business and that like you'll still be able to have these people back, but also like the whole world. Like, I care so much about climate change and how our world is changing because I love nature and I love being outside. So it's really important to me that I'm doing everything I can to like negate that. So I avoid overuse spots if they're at risk. And instead, I try to look for similar, more, you know, lesser known locations to spread out the impact. I also educate my couples about why this matters. You know, it's about preserving those beautiful places for years and years and generations, hopefully. Also, I want to leave the world better than I found it. So to do that, I donate to either the Environmental Defense Fund or the National Park Service. And my couple actually gets to choose which one means the most to them. And then every package booked, 1% goes into a donation.
Oh, that's so nice. Having them choose.
Yeah, I mean, proactive and reactive. Those are the two ways we go about that. But yeah, I mean, it's been really cool to, really make a meaningful difference in the world.
Yeah, that is really nice. And I also think something that's talked about quite a lot on Instagram is making sure that you don't geotag, at least not specifically. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you just can't be specific. I work a lot in national parks. So by the time we're talking national parks, people know about it. It's on the map. Nothing I'm going to do is going to leave a footprint of like, oh, I had no idea it exists. And like, because of Honeybee weddings, now I do. Like, no, like everyone knows. My specific protection that I use for parks is like, we're only going on sustainable surfaces. So rocks, trailheads. We're not going in the wildflowers. We're not messing with any of the like fauna that are going to be ruined or any of that sort of stuff. We stay the hell away from animals. I don't care what kind of animal it is. I don't care how like much you think you can pet a bison. Like, we're not going to do it.
What?
Yeah. So your little eyeballs are like looking at me. You're like, what? So true story. I had an inquiry for Yellowstone National Park, the land of the buffaloes, and the people were like, yeah, we want a picture next to a buffalo. And I was like, okay, well, they're like really dangerous, actually. They're wild animals. There's been maulings and like, we could definitely take pictures safely, like from a safe, very far away distance. And they're like, no, we want it right next to it. I'm like, okay, I'm out. And for that reason, I'm out. Like, I said I wasn't a good fit.
That's insane. Why would you want that?
Honestly, I don't know. I think they just don't know how dangerous they are. Like, they've probably just never seen one up close, which I get, but like, you guys, the number one rule, don't get dead. That is an easy way to get dead. Like, don't do it. Yeah, I don't know. It might be an Instagram thing. I don't know. It's scary.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you turned that down, and hopefully they didn't find a way.
I hope they're alive. Yeah, no, I hope to this day that they had a beautiful wedding. I hope they didn't see a single bison enough to like disturb. I hope they saw it from like 200 yards away and it was great. Yeah.
As you might have heard, I am planning to take this podcast from a every single week kind of podcast to a seasonal podcast. So this is the last episode planned for a while before I release podcast episodes in a more seasonal format. In between those seasons, I'm hoping to release a Norwegian podcast. I don't know how that's going to be at the time I'm recording this, but who knows? Maybe the next episode on here is going to be a teaser about just that. I've also talked about on this podcast that I have made some specific offers for Norwegian photographers in Norwegian. I've made the Photographers Academy. We've created a beginner's course, me along with my co-host, Kristina Fagodal, and we've also set up a membership. And hopefully next up is a Norwegian podcast. If you're curious to see what's going on and what's new and what I might be talking about now that actually hasn't happened yet, who knows? Go over to Instagram. You'll find me at Ingvild Kolnes. That's INGVILDKOLNES, and see what's new there. Send me a DM and we can figure out how I might be able to help you with your business. Whether you're speaking Norwegian or English, either is perfectly fine with me. Okay, so what about when you're out there or even at home when you're still location scouting and planning? How do you kind of like balance whatever is practical versus like what you need or want in terms of creating the shots that you want or that you imagine?
I mean, kind of like what we talked about with the Faroe Islands story, like it's kind of a dance, like I want that epic shot, but I also have to think about the things like parking, permits, whether your couple is down to hike 5+ miles. Like I always prioritize their comfort while trying to find ways to like add some creative flair. And I think the most important thing I can do is to be realistic about the expectations, right? If it's going to be a tough hike, again, I don't sugarcoat that. they need to know what they're signing up for. And so that's kind of the like balance is I'm always just kind of looking for. So when I see that like Alpine Lake, for instance, I'll be like, okay, where is the nearest road? And so I'm kind of like, eyeballing it on Google Maps of like, here's where the road is, or, Google Earth or whatever. And then I'm kind of backtracking that. So then I'm looking up at all trails, like how long is the trail and what is the altitude gain? So you can kind of like do the math on like, is it like real steep? And then I'm looking for parking lots. So again, for something like a trail, does it even have a parking lot? Like, do they need a 4-wheel drive vehicle? Living in the mountains like I do, most Alpine Lake trails, it's not just the trail that will be inaccessible, it's the road getting there. So if we're thinking anything outside of like, early June sometimes, like that's not a thing. And then I just go to the reviews. If it's not like obvious, if it's like, I just know that because of life experience. But if you don't know that, then I would look into the reviews that are happening, and those are time tagged. So like, hey, in June it looked like this. And if you're just not seeing a whole lot of reviews for like, November through May, it's probably because people aren't in there because it snowed out.
Right.
So yeah, I do definitely recommend taking a look at the reviews.
Well, except for like the bison incident, but would you say like the boundaries that are set are mostly due to your clients? Like they don't want to hike too much and stuff. Are you like up for anything yourself?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's a 12-mile hike round trip, and your girl has had that on her location matchmaking sheet for years. And nobody has been like, yeah, okay, that sounds cool. And despite all the marketing, right? Despite I'm like, yeah, I'll be your Sherpa. Like, I will bring the champagne. And like, I will say too, like as a photographer, like there's training, like off-season work that you need to be doing in order to even like make that happen. I would definitely recommend knowing CPR. I would definitely recommend knowing like have a first aid kit, like cultivate that. Like, there's a lot of just like being responsible and knowing that, you're kind of responsible for people that like might not know what they're doing. And so that kind of falls on you to keep them safe and all that sort of stuff. But also like put your pack on with 3 liters of water and champagne and your 70 to 200 millimeter lens and an extra body. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff adds up. So yeah, just being able to like do that in the off season is really important.
Yeah, I agree. And that's also why I feel like I'm more like a road trip elopement photographer. I am not up for the long hike.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, that's fine. That's probably part of like when you were doing like that's part of the marketing, right? It's like we can go to really cool places and not drip a sweat.
Yeah, well, I'm fine with some hiking, but I don't want to do like the all day things. And no, that's just not for me.
Well, spoiler alert, it's not for a lot of people either. Yeah. So like you're fine. I wouldn't worry about it.
No, I'm not worried. I also don't want to fly for my elopements.
Okay.
So I only do like once within driving distance. Like I've selected a part of the country and like that's where I go. That's it. And I think that's fine to just set your own boundaries and not think like, oh, if I want to be an elopement photographer, I have to go everywhere at any time, because you don't.
Right. I do think that's a common misconception. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, as long as you are the expert in your area. The thing about where we both live, though, like I will say, like as a little caveat, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but like you live in a beautiful country. Norway's beautiful. I live in Montana. There's mountains everywhere, like beautiful places that eloping couples want to go. If you live somewhere like Tennessee or like, Kentucky, where it's like just like flat and literally nothing is happening, I do think that would be challenging. And maybe that's just me. But if like I'm an eloping couple, I'm probably not going to do it in the plains, literally anywhere else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do think people want different things and have different reasons for why they want to elope. I live in the part of the country where I don't live where people come to elope usually, but I have had elopements that happen here as well. It does happen. So it depends on what people want. And also that's probably down to education and informing your couples of what possibilities there are. So I think
True.
I definitely agree, but I don't think you should discredit it and think like, oh, no one wants to come here because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, like don't count yourself out.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and again, that comes more to the experience that you're building for them, right?
Absolutely.
So, if it's like you have great food in the area, for instance, then like, come all my foodies.
Yeah.
And we're going to be like tasting all this, just for instance, versus like we're spending time outside.
You can elope in a city and have like an urban setting for your elopement as well. Like there's so many things you can do. But I still think location scouting plays a very big role for most photographers, like just getting familiar with the area, deciding how the day should look and figuring everything out. And if someone hasn't done much location scouting yet, what do you recommend that they do to start?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has to start somewhere. I would start small, scout the places that are near to you, and, practice looking for the light and the angles that photograph that place best, and really just get cozy in front of Google Earth. If you want to travel for your job, definitely just kind of look online, like get kind of your list, like your cultivated list of places. So as soon as someone gets on a call with you and they're like, oh, I really want to go to the mountains, you have your top 4 spots that you're like, yeah, girlfriend, this is the place for you. And so you're just ready for it.
Mm.
You can also practice by playing this little game. I actually play with myself this game all the time. I call it put a couple on it. So no matter where I am, I'm imagining what that photo would look like with my couple right there. So I'm driving by a hill and I imagine my couple right at the top. And I look at the map as I'm driving to see if there's a road. Or I'm like on a hike and I'm putting a couple on it at the best viewpoints. Like I'm literally doing it all day, every day. Like it could even be, I don't know, sweet husband and I went out for a drink and there's this beautiful marquee sign and I'm like, put a couple on it. Like I'm just like putting my little hand. So you can just like put it right there.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's so fun. And I think it's really great practice. So you can just kind of see this, even from a super simple level, what a good location is.
Yeah.
Because again, like I'm even looking for the road. I'm looking for the parking lot and I'm just driving by. And it's from me to the grocery store away.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I think there's another thing that we probably should talk about, and that is the options. If you're like wanting to plan, for example, an elopement where the limitations are endless, you can probably go anywhere. How to get started, how to like just know where to begin in terms of a general area, let alone like a specific location. How can you deal with that?
I mean, well, I've kind of had it both ways. I've had couples where they're like, I want Faroe Islands, which, is an entire country, but it's pretty small. There's like, you have a very specific area of which you are looking. And then from there, you kind of like dive deeper in. So I always use not only like what I want to go see, because, by the time they're reaching out to you, like they like your style and they trust your vision because they've seen the images that you create and they're like, yes, I'm into that. So they're trusting your taste, kind of. So if there's a place that I'm like, oh, that looks awesome, then it's kind of an automatic that my couples will think the same because they're already reaching out to me, they've already booked me, they've already done it. So you can kind of hand tailor that to what you like. But also when you do that questionnaire, you have the must-haves, right? Like you kind of have the like takeaways of what's really important for the couple. And so I'm just kind of like, does it tick all the boxes? And then I'm looking for the logistical stuff.
Mm.
Like, is it open that time of year? Where's the parking lot? Where's the road? Like all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, it can definitely feel like, I think photographers can feel overwhelmed with it. And, that's reasonable. But if you just break the process into steps and tackle it one at a time, that's the way I found to do it. And I mean, honestly, I've had couples reach out and they're like, I want mountains. And I'm like, cool, anywhere in the world? And they're like, yeah. So I definitely recommend, just for your own like pricing and travel accommodations, like I would 100% recommend you at least like pick a country, if not a region, before you can book them, because that will impact your profit, which, I want you to be custom quoting. So you're loading your travel fees in there. Like, I don't want you losing money on this. So don't book anything until you have that very specific information. I have made that mistake in the past.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It only took me one time, and now I'm telling you, don't do it.
Yeah, no, but that is really important, and it is really important reminder. I used to do elopements all over Norway, and I would get couples who just booked, and I had travel included, so it wasn't a pricing thing, but it did lead to me having to think of like the whole country as like, okay, so where do we want to go? And we'd always start by thinking, okay, so what does this couple want? Okay, so they're looking for mountains or fjords or like a waterfall. And that kind of narrows it down because you can't find a good waterfall anywhere. So it's like, okay, so where can I find the good waterfalls and how far do they want to hike? So asking those questions up front, that's pretty important, I'd say. Can you share like 3 quick tips for making the location scouting process just easier, better, quicker?
Yeah, no, for sure. Number 1, the apps like Google Earth and All Trails will really narrow down your options and get you some really concrete information. So highly recommend those 2. Number 2, visit the locations during the time of day you plan to shoot. So when you get there 1 to 2 days in advance, make sure to plan for the times that you'll be there, especially if you've never been there before. Number 3, always have a backup location, or like 6, in case things don't go as planned, and pin those places to your Google Maps and make sure it's available offline. So it's just such an easy day of pivot if you need to.
Yeah, those are all brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I need to ask, like, what's the most beautiful or special location you've ever shot at?
Oh my gosh. That has to be Iceland.
Ooh, like, Iceland. Okay.
Oh, I love it. So not only does Iceland have some of the most unique landscapes I've ever seen, with the colors and the geothermal action that's going on over there, but the weather changes so dramatically from season to season. So like no spot is ever the same. It's so fun. Are
there any places you want to shoot at that you haven't yet?
I thought you never ask. Yeah, so the few that I can just think off the top of my head, Patagonia. Love to go down south.
Beautiful.
Oh my gosh. New Zealand. And I've been kind of thinking Croatia.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of like not the mountains that I usually kind of crave. So kind of a few. I always usually live for the like wild, untouched landscapes. But, I've been thinking about it. So yeah, those.
Yeah. I love all those. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I know it. How about you, though? Can we hear about like your places that you want to go? I know you don't like travel or you don't want to fly for weddings, but like, is there a place that you would?
Well, the thing is, if you would have asked me a few years ago, yes, definitely. But now it's a bit like, I really don't want to travel. I don't want to travel with my equipment. I love being at home. I don't want to fly for work, like any of that.
Right.
But if that wasn't the case, if my boyfriend could come and he would like drag all my equipment with me and all that.
Yes. Like all the perfect worlds aligning, like if everything aligned. Yeah.
Okay. I was like this close to being booked for a Faroe Islands elopement before the pandemic hit. And that still stings. That was like in 2020, must have been. And that was like, it was painful because that was like such a good couple and they just wanted to, it would have been amazing. So yeah. I have to say the Faroe Islands due to that.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to go to Namibia for maybe 20 years. I would love to go to Namibia.
That would be amazing.
It's like stunning with the desert and the sunsets. And
yes.
So I'd want to go there.
Okay, I definitely need to add another to my list, Kenya. So Kenya's on my list because, landscapes aside, I don't know if you ever heard of the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. They are a orphanage for elephants.
Oh, I love elephant orphanages.
So baby elephants, girl, can you just, so like taking a couple to the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, seeing some baby elephants, donating a hefty sum because baby elephants, and just, I think that would just be amazing.
That does sound amazing. Yeah.
Continue.
I just feel like I'm kind of close because I wanted to say Ireland because I think Ireland looks so amazing. I've been to Patagonia, but not to shoot a wedding, but that was stunning. Like,
excuse me, how have I known you for so long and never known this fact? Okay, so we're going to take this offline.
Well, it was like in 2008, so it's a long time ago. I did have my camera, but I wasn't shooting people or anything. But that was stunning.
Yeah.
And it's huge. Like, it's so massive.
Right.
And I want to say somewhere I haven't been. So I guess I would add New Zealand to the list as well because I haven't been and it looks amazing.
Yeah. I mean, if like Lord of the Rings is being filmed there, that like there's a reason.
I know. Yeah.
Like they're no dummies, okay? They know a good spot. Well, that's a good list.
It is a good list, and so is yours. But I do also think that since we've been talking so much about locations and how to do that, and the fact that you've been in different countries to photograph elopements all over, I've been to some, don't want to do it anymore, but I've been to some. I'm sure that whoever's listening is thinking, how do they get these inquiries and these jobs to shoot all over? Can you just talk about that for like 2 minutes so that we understand like it's a real thing, it's possible, it can be done?
Yeah, for sure. So the very first Iceland elopement I ever booked, I'm just going to like give you that story because I think it's just helpful for like a concrete place. So your girl had always wanted to go to Iceland because enough said, Iceland. So I did a lot of location matchmaking, a lot of location scouting online. I learned all the cool places and I just learned a lot about Iceland, so much about it. And then I ended up writing a blog about how to elope in Iceland and where the best places are. And I included, all that information that I found. In addition, like vendors to book and like great places to stay. It was basically this guide for like any couple going to Iceland would be like, all the boxes are ticked. Like we know how to get legally married there if you want to. The officiants, the hair and makeup artists, the florists, like, all this stuff. Okay, so I did the guide, I put it out there, I optimized it with my Spice Up Your SEO strategy, did all the stuff. 2 or 3 months later, I get an inquiry for Glacier National Park with this couple. And, Glacier's kind of my backyard, so it's like very standard issue. But as part of my new inquiry email funnel, it was like, hey, you could do Glacier, but you could also do Iceland. Mm-hmm. And here's the guide. So if you want to learn more about Iceland, here it is. When I got on that inquiry call, I will never forget this couple. They're like the sweetest human beings and like so adventurous, and they were hooked. They heard me talk about Iceland on the inquiry call, and they're like, yeah, because like I want to make this like once in a lifetime vacation. I want to make this honeymoon. Like I want to do this thing, and like Iceland. So we did it.
Amazing. That's
how we booked it. And then I started getting inquiries for Iceland because of the blog SEO, right? Like that started like ticking up. But my first one in Iceland was because of that. So that's part of my email inquiry sequence as well, is like, hey, you could choose Glacier. I'll also be in Iceland in September and offer a travel discount if that's something you want. So it's always kind of this like, I think sometimes couples forget that they can dream as big as they want. Mm-hmm. They kind of end up like making it so small when really it's like the world's your oyster.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere you want.
I think you're right. And I also think, well, first of all, I do want to say that while I do think you can be an elopement photographer wherever you want, I don't necessarily think that it's a good idea to start there. You probably want to start more local and build on it like you did.
Totally.
And I think that is a mistake that a lot of people, probably including myself, think like, I can just be an elopement photographer anywhere, and you start there. But the reality is no one's ever going to search for elopement photographer anywhere. Like you have to be specific.
No, totally. No, 100%. Well, and that's, I should have like backed up. Like, so let's see, I photographed my first wedding in 2008, been around a long time. And not to mention how like I've been hiking the mountains and like really spending time in nature and like learning what being safe in nature is and what leave no trace in nature is, like being a responsible nature lover, like entire life, right? That's just like a life calling. Mm-hmm. And then that elopement was in 2022. So when you think about like how much I had invested into myself, into knowing the nature, into knowing what it means to be safe, and then just the photography piece, it was a lot of time. It wasn't just like pick up camera, we'll go to Iceland.
Yeah.
There's a lot between there and Iceland.
Absolutely. I hear so often when someone experienced is talking, someone newer is listening, and it's like, but I'm nowhere near there. There's something wrong with me. Just hear that there is, in most cases, a longer journey behind it. So it's not a competition.
Right. No, I mean, firstly, it's not a competition at all. Secondly, like the learning is kind of the fun part. Like I've had a lot of really fun experiences getting me up to where I was. And that was like no pressure to book anything. It's just going at this stage and at your own pace.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would definitely just get outside in your own area, like romp around, do some nature, like write about it, take some pictures about it, go to your national park. Like really, if you come from a place of like exploring and discovering, that's going to get you to learn more about what eloping couples are looking for and about the area in a more organic way, but also really connect you to why you're doing it in the first place. And that's, I think, what sometimes we end up forgetting.
Yeah.
Is that it's not about the Instagram, it's not about the TikToks. It's not about any of that. It's about like just getting out in these beautiful places. And then you're going to be getting paid to do that.
I think so too. And you just have to put it out there. That is the most important thing.
Yeah, agreed.
So how would you say that location scouting has shaped the way that you do photography, like your approach to photography?
I mean, it's kind of been a magical process, honestly. Like location scouting has made me realize even more that it's not just about the photos. It's about that once in a lifetime experience for the couple. And it's about landing in a place they've never been and experiencing that together. It's about the adventure. It's about the discovery. I grew up photographing landscapes, which felt really wild, trying to do such amazing landscapes justice. Now with the like, I put a couple on it game, but I'm still trying to reach deep down and capture something that is in itself kind of uncapturable. Right? Like, how do you even get a photo of the biggest mountain you've ever seen and capture it the way that makes you feel small? Like, how do you even capture the way a boat ride in the Amalfi Coast brings you so much damn joy you could just explode? Like, in some ways, you don't. And you just have to be there. So I think this has shaped my overall approach to photography because I let my couple sit in their feelings during those moments. I capture the landscape, but also don't make them feel like they're in a photo shoot because it's not about it. Like, are we going to get beautiful fucking pictures? Like, yes, of course. But that's not what it's really about. Like, I just let them experience the way these epic landscapes make them feel. And that has really impacted the photography approach.
Yeah. I think that's such an important and in many ways disregarded approach to it because many photographers are so focused on the photos, which is fair. We're photographers, but photography is so much more now, or it can be so much more because there's so much competition. You have your iPhone, you have AI, you could generate a photo of you being on top of Mount Everest in like 2 minutes if you wanted to.
I mean, like side tangent, that makes me want to explode. Like just the like inauthenticity of that. I'm just like, I can't. Why? I can't.
No, I get it. But that's not going to go away anytime soon.
I know, you're right.
And I think that what we have to offer is it's just becoming more worth because we're offering an experience. We're offering something that you can't just click a button and get. It has to do with feelings. It has to do with memories. So if it was just about getting the perfect photo, you could AI generate that. You could manipulate it, whatever you want to do.
Right.
But it's all about the experience. And I think that as photographers, we have to be better at talking about that and and making sure that people understand that you're not just getting a photo session, you're going to have the best day of your life.
Right. Well, it's so crazy how often I have to tell my couples who are on the inquiry call with me, this is not an all-day photo shoot. Mm-hmm. I'll say it louder for people in the back. This is not an all-day photo shoot, right? This is an experience. This is an entire day of doing only the coolest stuff and celebrating the two of you as a pair and like moving on together in this life that you've chosen. That's what it is. And again, we'll get beautiful pictures. Don't you worry about it. But it's not a photo shoot. And I have to always be telling people that, because even sweet clients, that's their expectation. Their expectation is that we're just going to click a button and like walk to the next spot and like click a button and do it all over again.
Yeah. And to be honest, not a lot of people want that. I mean, that sounds, to me, that sounds horrible. Like
terrible. Oh, it sounds horrible. Horrible. I hate having my picture taken, girl. I hate it.
Me too.
You know, that's why I arrange people the way I do, is because I hate, if that was my day, the like click and walk, I would explode.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm the same. That is not enjoyable, and that is not what my clients want. They want to have a good time, but that's down to marketing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just again, like basic education, because they don't know what they want. Right? I mean, which is completely fair. They've probably never been married before. They've probably never done this before. They don't know. Yeah. So it's up to us to market and like educate them as to like how magical it could be.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. But I do think it's important to just end this talk just reminding everyone about leave no trace and the ethics of location scouting, of being in nature. Can you just say a couple of things about that real quick?
Yeah, leave no trace is really important. And again, like coming from someone who has hiked a million hikes and gone to national parks and really like lived this, it is like you're going to see me on the trail picking up other people's trash. Like I see trash on the trail. It's not mine. I don't care. I'm putting it in my backpack. It's so important, not only for the like landscape and making sure we're preserving it and protecting it, but for the wildlife as well. So principles that I stand by: trails and non-fragile landscapes. So like rocks, right? Like rocks you can walk on, fauna, floral, wildflowers. We're not walking on that. Don't pick wildflowers. Don't feed the wildlife. The squirrels will tell you that they want to be fed, and they're like, oh yes, you are here to feed me. You are not. It's really bad for wildlife when they are constantly being fed, because that means that they can't fend for themselves in nature. So that's never great. And yeah, just making sure that you're responsible. Pack it in, pack it out. That goes for everything that is coming out of your body and out of your bag. So just be really mindful of that. If we have animals, dogs, if we're hiking with dogs, please pick up after your pets. Because if you're not doing it, then like I will have to do it, and I don't like doing it. I will, but I don't like it. So those are just some tips and tricks.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Yeah.
And I want everyone to see your beautiful photos. So where can they go to see them?
We are on Instagram at Honeybee Weddings MT, as in mountain. So you can check that out. The website is a great place. It just got a little glow up. So I would love some website love if y'all are into that sort of thing.
Wow.
And that's honeybeeweddingsmt.com. And then you can hear the podcast on The Climb with Kelsey, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun, like always.
Thank you. Oh, like always. It's so fun to chat with you.
You just listened to an episode of Sustainable Photography. Please share this episode with a photographer you care about.